So this will be recorded.
Now we are good to go.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody. Sarah.
Welcome everyone. It's so beautiful to see all your beautiful smiling faces today. This is the 4th annual RIBA Physical Immortality Day. And we're just to speak about who RIBA is. We are Rebirth International Breathwork Association. We formed together with Heike Strombach, who has held Rebirth International in Germany for 20 years, maybe more
25,
than 20 years.
25 years.
Thanks. And I have Peace Arnold. Some of you know her as Peace Virginia Arnold, our community maestro, master of all things to do with community. I think of you as our community mama, just for all of these years, over a decade easily. And you helped get Leonard started with collecting a database online and handed it off to me. I took off with his newsletter publishing and his ebooks, and we've all been very close to Leonard and core supporters of the organization, and it just made sense for us to come together and continue his work to really protect and preserve the integrity of his teaching and his message, and to keep community building going and reaching out to this beautiful global community that he has created. And well, Heike, you created it right alongside him for like 28 years. I think you were working with him and had known him. So our vision is to be the love in the world that Leonard embodied, and to just continue sharing his teachings and trainings, and just to secure the quality of the rebirthing breathwork movement and its forward momentum, and to keep that legacy building. So thanks for being with us today here to talk about physical immortality. This is one of Leonard's most well-known concepts and teachings, maybe one of his more controversial ones. And I want to start out by saying for anyone that may be feeling like, well, but he died, Leonard passed away, how can we move forward with this teaching? And feeling that there's some hypocrisy in that. I just want to speak straight to that, because Leonard taught us not to follow him, but to grow out and find the immortal masters ourselves, to build relationships and have those direct connection and experiences with them ourselves, as he did. He just really saw himself as a messenger. And yes, we all wanted him to make it and to do phenomenal things, which he did do with his life. He changed the course of human history through founding the breathwork movement. But he always said, don't follow me until I'm 300 years old. So, we took his message. He inspired physical immortality, that idea and that reality in us. And I can say that with a true heart and sincerity, because I have had personal experiences with immortal masters. I have seen people materialize and dematerialize. And I want people to know this kind of ultimate reality that actually is here. It's a very real and true thing. And we are to go forth and to experience that ourselves and to seek that out. So I'm writing a book right now, sharing my personal experiences, because I want people to know what's available. I want people to know why Leonard was so passionate about physical immortality. If they didn't hear that directly from him or through his teachings or writings, we want it to come through us. So we're hosting this every year to celebrate Leonard on his birthday. Happy birthday, Leonard. Om Namah Shivaya. And also to keep the message and the momentum and the love going. So thank you for being a part of this. And with that, I believe Peace, is there anything you want to add to any of this as part of RIBA?
It just occurred to me as you were speaking, that with the situation that we're looking at in the world and all the violence, the one thing about Leonard that struck me most is how gentle he was, and how the death urge can be suicidal and homicidal, and people are responding in fear and attack and violence, and that one of the important aspects of exploring this topic is to unravel all of the psyche aspects of our psyche that are leading to this continuing violence and abusive behaviors in the world, because physical immortality is, you'd have to develop quite a degree of mastery and gentleness and in unraveling that death urge and that attack mode. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Heike, you
yes. So I just want to say what we already did today, to just give a little report on the day. So we had a meeting in the morning, my morning. Now I have 6 o'clock at night. So at 10 a.m. we started with the first English meeting. And if you like to watch it, it will soon be on YouTube, and it was live also on Facebook. And I'm in conversation with Joanne Eiserman, and Karuna Müller is there. And so we are sharing about the ideas of physical immortality as well. So that was a good time for India and for Australia. And then we had welcome and a birthday greeting by Alfredo Galbusera in Italian. That's also on Facebook. And then we had a beautiful German meeting with Eva Walter, who is actually doing her master's in psychology. She has her work will be to study the effects of rebirthing breath work in people, and also their mystical experiences, and how people have life-changing experiences. And she will actually make a study out of that. And I'm very excited about that. So we had a beautiful talk in German, and then we had a beautiful meeting in Spanish at 3, and now we are for the second time in the English meeting. And so all this will be available to watch whenever I've uploaded it, probably tomorrow. And I think I should just start. I start with the first, one of our first guests, if that's okay with you. So yes. I start with Colleen Quinn. She is a doctor also in psychology, and she is now also working with rebirthing breath work and her modalities, and I will let her share about it. She's done research. She's been teaching at 4 universities, so you have quite a lot of experience already in the field of psychology, and including now rebirthing breath work in it. And well, I just start. You can share a little bit more about yourself. This was just a very brief introduction, and anything you like to say for your introduction? Anything else?
Just that, I entered psychology because I really had this vision of seeing people come into this highest version of themselves, and then really quickly learned early on that what we had really with cognitive behavioral and even a lot of psychoanalytic, when you marry that with managed care, it was really just putting band-aids on problems, just teaching some skills and putting band-aids on our egos. And so it really was with, for me, the introduction of breath work that started the conversation with my own soul. And when I was able to have that conversation clearly going, then I was able to use that with my clients, and it's changed everything. And there is really no greater joy than watching people remember their limitlessness and wake up right in front of your eyes. So I guess that would be what I would add.
Okay, yes. And so maybe as a psychologist, you could share your experiences, the specialty that what rebirthing breath work does for the people, or in the transformation of people's lives.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody has trauma. You know, maybe not everybody meets a diagnosis of PTSD, but everybody faces things in their lives that exceed their ability to cope and bring them pain that they're not ready to feel. And I believe that breath work has the unique ability to create a safe container where people feel safe enough to surrender. That's the first thing. Having that safety to surrender, to go in deeply and let your soul speak. It's going to build that trust that you can carry out into your life. So it changes the whole lens for with which you're seeing life. Now, instead of a fear lens and a lens of what's wrong in this moment, you're bringing a measure of trust and what's right in this moment. I feel like there are 3 ways to go in and start that conversation with your soul. One is meditation. I feel like meditation is the hardest way in because it's radical presence. And when people have not conquered their inner, or befriended, I guess is the better word, befriended their inner landscape, that radical presence is just an observance of all the critic and all the ego diatribe in our heads, and it can be painful.
And it could be very confusing if you're not used to really experiencing yourself, right?
Absolutely, it's confusing and it's painful, and I think for many people it just brings to awareness how much they're not in presence, and it's scary. And then the other means in is with plant medicine, and I think plant medicine is the easiest means in. And when we, you know, I believe those plants are enlightened beings. They'll lay down our lives for us so we can have an enlightened moment. And in that moment, you're like, oh my God, I'm enlightened. Like, you know, I got this now. But the big problem there, it's easy in, but the integration is really difficult with plant medicine. And so the plants wear off, and how are you going to live it? Breath work to me seems to be the middle path in. There is some devotion to it, and you have to surrender. But with that conversation, when you are truly in the breath, and we've all experienced this, you're from my experience, you're hovering as the witness, in that witness over the experience, in that place of love, so that you can actually feel it without becoming undone by it. And that's the beauty of it. When you can go in with some peace and equanimity and love and feel those things that seem so terrifying, and then the coin is flipped. The coin is flipped, and there's a new relationship with those experiences, and we see that it all was love. Even you know, the most heinous things, love was there. We were never alone, and we, our own higher selves, were always with us, pulling us through. That flips the script for people. And then to be able to take that peace and love that we feel, and it just naturally, it spills out from our hearts into our lives. So I think that understanding what that witness is, what our higher self is, actually developing a relationship with it, and then feeling from that place comfortable enough to bring it into our day-to-day lives.
Right. At the end of the breathing session, usually people enter that space of union with the higher spirit and with our guardian and guardians and the saints and masters that are with us and supporting us. Yes.
Yeah.
So how, in your own healing, how did breath work? Because we are talking about it because Leonard Orr created or founded the breath work as it exists in rebirthing breath work, and many other modalities came from that. So in your own healing, can you share some of your experiences with that?
Yeah, so, one of the beautiful things I find with our souls is, for many people, when you first start going in, the experiences seem to be an ascension experiences where we're going up and we're connected with the oneness, with the love, and with the bliss. And I feel like that's intoxicating. It opens our hearts. It reminds us of all that joy, and we can then go spill it out. And then, as our soul is ready, I always believe it's at our soul's own readiness, awareness for what we can handle, then those descension trips start to come up. But at that point, we have enough of a trust in the process that we can hang in there for those. And so I too am writing a book on my experiences with breath work, and it's called Essence Merging: A Path to Unity Consciousness, and it's really sort of chronicles my whole relationship with breath work, which really has changed and morphed over the years. This is a journey for all of us, and a lot of us, the journey, seemingly we're walking down cul-de-sacs trying to figure out what's really going on there, but all the cul-de-sacs are beautiful and worthy, and there's learning in all of them. There are no wrong turns. But it chronicles really, that whole process of being comfortable being on our own hero's journey. But so if I might, I'd like to share maybe one of my early ascension breath works, just for an example of what it was like for me.
Great, just go ahead.
Okay, so once sufficiently comfortable and warm from the blankets and the floor cushions, Elijah, who was my breath worker at the time, sat at my side up by my shoulder. Eyes closed, I approached the moment with the innocence of a child, with complete reverence for the ineffable in all its potentiality. I breathed slowly, very slowly. Now, I will say that's not a rebirthing thing. Heike always told me to go faster. And for me, it took me out of the presence. So, and at this time, that's what I did. I breathed slowly, looking around expectantly with my mind's eye. Although it seemed nothing more than an empty stillness at first, the space was also very full, pregnant with the vibrant, energetic connection that palpated through Elijah. With eyes closed, I could see a prism of bright opal light from the small window which surrounded the space, making a sheath around us. It felt so safe in that space, totally trusting the felt love from Elijah for me, only love, no judgment, no demands, no expectations, full acceptance of me exactly as I am, or ever was, or ever would be. This acceptance allowed my true nature, my innocence, to come forth completely without reservation. Suddenly, my fairy wings popped out. Only this time, I was soaring effortlessly on the swift wings of a beautiful white Pegasus, who surprisingly was quite familiar to me, an eternal comrade. Soon enough, we were in another land entirely. Initially, the steed touched down by a stream. The prince was waiting. I sensed the prince to be an embodiment of love incarnate, like Jesus, but I knew he was not actually Jesus. Behind him, off in the distance, a large stately castle was perched, white, adorned in gold, so massive it consumed the sky. The castle was surrounded on the northeastern side by a type of preternatural evergreens over 500 feet tall. The three of us, me, the horse, and the prince, walked closer, each drawn by the majesty. Elijah asked what was happening, I told him that I was now in the turret of the castle, but the prince was down below. I yearned more than anything to be close to the prince. The energetic love sensation was precious and intoxicating. He asked if I could do anything to reunite with the prince. My intention made it so. In a flash, he was in the turret with me, deeply gazing in my eyes with a look of wonder at the sight of me. He marveled at me. To see marvel from divine eyes reflecting back to your own being is quite an affirmation. The power of intentionality to bring about the manifestation became known to me in this moment, the first taste of how creating a life works. The castle was alive with its own energy and wisdom. It was summoning me inside. I wanted to remain close to the prince, but I needed to find the courage to venture in. Taking the first steps inside the door caused momentary despair and panic from the loss of idyllic landscape outside. Oops, sorry about that. I sensed that the panic came from the fear of being separated from the beloved, a pain no one could endure, and thankfully no one would ever have to. That was just my ego. We all have so much trouble believing we can never actually be separated from this omnipresent creative source energy. It's not possible. We can't separate from self. In this trance state, that knowing that God is fully within each self was transmitted to me. A glimpse of truth revisited many times before it became fully embodied. You look as if you're being breathed, almost no breath at all. I heard this as if it was coming from a far-off land. Now, willingness came as an escort to guide me inside the castle, wherever that may lead. An energy like gaseous, technicolored bubbles was my escort. I entered the grand foyer, a circular room with a ceiling 100 feet tall, bookcases built into the walls lined with works that revealed universal truths given to shamans, yogis, and teachers, intermingled with all manner of art. Musical notes were visible spectrum-colored energy waves with subtle tone changes like sound bowls. Each tone was a unique essence of a person or thing, ever-changing in its vibrations. But when all of the essences lay atop each other, it created a higher sound, most pleasing. It looked like the infinity symbol whirling along on itself as crystalline white light. I was so enraptured that I fell to the ground to let it absorb my spirit. While I lay there, many truths were revealed to me, infused in my spirit. Then instantly, my escort transported me to a new room. Despondent for the loss of the foyer, quickly gave way to curiosity. In this room of prisms and refractory light, I carefully inspected the cultures that gave the room its wisdom and effervescence. Cultures that were both different and yet the same. All life on the same path of ascension. All paths are the one path. We are all shedding the same skin, learning the same lessons, just wrapped in different details. Here I was shown the sacredness of humanity, the collective wheel of energy that is both unique and one. After a time, the escort transported me again, forlorn yet again, for I did not want to leave, and in awe of what I beheld. It was a long, grand hall with a large table that could seat multitudes. There was an ornate instrument with pulleys and chains producing geometric patterns arising and falling away, that suspended over the center of this vast table. It was multi-dimensional, new versions arising from its core, spreading out in all different directions, which could be perceived as shapes within shapes. This was life force. Time layered upon itself in such a way that there was no time. All possibilities were to be lived. I was shown the supreme power of life force shaping how holy evolution comes about, how the universe is expanding and consciousness is ever awakening. There is no end. Growth is infinite. After an unknown time, I was on my steed. He leapt into the atmosphere and we raced through time and space. In a flash, I was back in Elijah's cottage. It was twilight now. My eyelids flickered as I struggled to acclimate myself. Elijah held his hands crisscrossed over his heart and he shook his head. You are absolutely radiant right now, he beamed. Woozy, he helped me up. So
Beautiful. That's a real mystical experience, and so we should connect you with Eva for the research. So beautiful. You also had descending experiences, right? So that was probably one of the highlights that you just shared of your life. And of course, descension work can also be highlights.
Absolutely. Yeah, and before I leave this, I want to just say about this experience, which was just also so synchronistic for me. Years later, years passed after I had this experience, and I was on YouTube, and somebody who has an ayahuasca retreat center in Costa Rica talked about the Castle of Divinity, and he had an artist create a rendering of this Castle of Divinity. And I looked at the castle like, oh my God, that's the same castle that I was in. And it just really highlighted for me the one universal mind that we think we're having these thoughts, but these thoughts are really having us. And so that it was just, it brought a humbling. It was a real humbling that, you know, we're all just part of the same clock, gears in the same clock.
Right. Beautiful. We have lots more guests. So if you would like to share something about the descension experience, and then we can hear from the others. And if you like to share more, there's probably also more time later.
Sure. I feel like the dissension experience is a longer read, but it really
Could you just share it?
Yeah. So as Spirit often does when you start this conversation, a series of events happen, and to peel away layer upon layer for this one piece of stuck energy. And so I had an experience where it was brought to my attention that I did not have a close relationship with my mother. And it was in my astrological chart. Like, and I was so curious, like, is everybody born on this day in my town have a rough relationship with their mother? And I had one particular thing happen where because I was very close with my grandmother, I was kind of put in my grandmother's arms from the day I was born. And as my grandmother, she wasn't sick, and yet I had this intuition that she was I knew she was going away on this trip and that I would never see her again. But she wasn't sick. But I told everyone in my family, I'm like, you're going to go up there. I'm never going to see you again. And they're like, you're just being dramatic. You want to go on the trip. Well, she did go up there, and she had an aneurysm burst. And my family went up, and they thought I would be too dramatic, too emotional, and this would not help her. So I was left back at home I was 12, my brother was 13, and we were left at home for 10 days. And during that time, that was probably the darkest time of my life. And as I felt very alone, I did something that I held as like my darkest moment, in my darkest moment, I acted in a way that caused pain for someone else. And I had held that inside for so long, and now it was coming up. It was ready to be released. And so the first thing that happened was in a breathwork retreat. We were supposed to, serendipitously, we're supposed to pair off with somebody and share our darkest moment. And this woman made a beeline for me. I knew her not very well, but she made a beeline and she went first. And I was like, I could tell the story without sharing what I did, and it would still be dark, but I knew I had to share the whole thing. So that was the first thing that happened. And then in breath work, I knew I really needed to go in and actually be in that room and live that experience. And I did. And in that, I was able to, I'm sobbing, sitting in front of my breath worker, and he's asking what I need. And I said, I need to know that I'm still worthy, that I am still worthy in your eyes. And hearing it from him that I was worthy, then I was able to give it to myself. He did stare, he looked me in the eyes, and he told me that I was actually more beautiful in my vulnerability. And he directed me to send that love to myself. That was a beautiful breakthrough moment. And then after that, I could get in touch with my anger. I could get in touch with the anger that I also had not allowed myself to feel, and for being abandoned at such a vulnerable time. So
Great.
it was
yes,
incredibly powerful.
Yes, beautiful. We will can ask you again later, if possible, if you are in the call for the time. I would like to hand it over, if it's okay, now to Sara. Is Sara, where is Sara? I don't
I'm
see.
here.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so many people. Great, so many people in the talk. Thank you, Colleen. Yes, so the rebirthing breathwork, Leonard developed the breathwork, and he always said that physical immortality is only possible in the context of physical immortality because we have these the possibility of descending into the trauma and healing the trauma, but we also have the possibility, like you shared, of ascending to our highest power. And because today, as it is Leonard's birthday, we are celebrating, and you have some ideas too on physical immortality, but I would like to hand it over to Sara and
Thank
continue
you.
with some with
Yes.
you.
Sure. Yeah.
Colleen.
I also, it just occurred to me to mention that today this relates because I want to give people practical ways that they can kind of have a path or an avenue to start studying their unconscious death urge and to help them on that journey in the dissension and going into and looking into their consciousness. And so today I wrote the along with Leonard, we wrote the physical immortality consciousness consultation, and I designed it and included articles from him. He approved of it, and we published it. And it's a consultation similar to, some of you may be familiar with the prosperity consciousness consultation, really about getting into your case around money and busting free from that. This is the same concept. It's about getting into your unconscious death urge, which is uncomfortable for people. I find a lot of people want to just look at the light, the ascension, the fun stuff. And I do too. It's wonderful. Let's go there. But it's very impractical to just look only at that and not be managing the shadow, the unconscious death urge that really can be dominating our life unconsciously, completely unknown to us in our subconscious and sabotaging. So that is available. I post the link in the Facebook group. We'll send it out in a newsletter. I'll share it here. And it's a wonderful way to practice it with clients also. And Leonard was using it in the training center in his last trainings and was getting wonderful feedback from trainees. So it's just a marvelous tool that I'm really glad we put out there and is still available today. And I want to welcome we'll go with our next guest. We have met so many of you today. Claude Charlebois, please tell me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. But welcome. You are a longtime rebirther. I think you're one of the few people that we have that knew Leonard really kind of at the beginning, maybe when he was still at Theta House, I'm thinking. I know you traveled to India with him and had marvelous adventures there. And you've been a longtime rebirther yourself. So if you want to share anything to kind of introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you,
us.
Sarah. Can everybody?
Yeah, thank you.
Can
It
everybody?
seems that your video is stuck, but we can hear your audio.
Oh, okay, great. No, I wasn't with Leonard at Theta House. I met Leonard in the weekend that Babaji left his physical form, which would be February 1984. First time that we met, I went to meet him at a weekend seminar in Boston. And so we spoke at length, and that's where I decided to go to India with him and meet with Babaji. As it turned out, there was no internet in 1984, so I learned of Babaji's transition about 2-3 weeks later. So I postponed the trip to India because essentially I wanted to go with Leonard and be introduced to Babaji. But I eventually surrendered to the idea in 1987 and decided to go there in spite of the fact that, Leonard kept telling me that he had manifested different bodies because people saw him in different forms here, there, and everywhere, some people in Europe, etc. And a psychic from Europe had advised him he had manifested a body at the border of Nepal and Tibet on a mountain called Shisha Pangma. So basically that's what happened. I joined him in India in September '87, and we hiked in the Himalayas to try and find this place. And of course, you can read about this story in Paula Churchill's book, which is Leonard's biography, Immortal Breath, and she talks about this experience. Exactly.
Eternal breath. Yeah.
And so that was my meeting with Leonard at that point. And throughout the years, I was more involved in the beginning with different breath work. I had been a yoga teacher in the 70s. And what my revelation was with rebirthing is that I got more out of one rebirthing session than I had with 10 years of yogic breathing. As far as I suppose that the yogic breathing might have prepared me, my energy to receive the breath work in this form, and it created a tremendous release in me. So the first rebirthing session I had a Kundalini rise, and it was a transcendental experience for me. So then and there, I decided to get into the training. And so I live in Montreal in Canada, and of course, Leonard at that time was living in California at Campbell Hot Springs. So all kinds of fun experiences happened after that. I did a 2 or 3 year training with a local trainer here. And then, of course, I went to India with him. And on the way back, he introduced me to my wife. Not many people know that. When I came back from India and Nepal, he came to Montreal in May 1988. I was invited by a psychotherapist here to talk about breath work. And there was a a great amount of psychotherapists, psychologists, even psychiatrists that were interested in what he had to say. So there were hundreds of people at his meetings, at his conferences, and he announced that he was going to do a 3-day workshop in the Laurentian Mountains, which are north of Montreal. And so he insisted I accompany him and translate, because Quebec is a bilingual province, like half people speak French, half people speak English. So I was translating in French for him. And there was a lady there that showed up that was invited by her psychotherapist, and she had done breath work because she was epileptic. And as it turns out, through the breath work, she cured her epilepsy.
Wow.
And so,
Yes.
Charles, Claude, if you stop your video for a moment and start it again, it might help, because you're still frozen and we cannot see you.
okay,
Just
hold on, I'll try that.
turn the camera off for a moment and then start it again. Let's see if that changes. Yeah, wonderful, great.
Thank you.
And please continue.
Okay, thank you, Heike. I'm not too good at this tech yet.
Right.
Yeah, so
Me neither.
Leonard told me that people that have epilepsy are usually psychic and very sensitive, hypersensitive in some cases. So I talked, he sort of encouraged me or pushed me to talk with, her name is Suzanne. And so we had, we had some nice talks, and we actually met in the cafeteria at the seminar, and she had the impression, and I had the impression I knew her, and of course, as in all of Leonard's seminars and workshops, we had leaders and 3 or 4 people with rebirths with the leader, and a twist of fate was that Suzanne ended up in my group. And so we talked, and she wasn't there for the full week, but she came back the next weekend, and that's where we met. And Leonard said, well, she's a high quality person and you should pursue that. And so the weird thing is that he said, if you guys hit it off, come to California and I'll marry you. and
Leonard had studied religion and philosophy, and he actually had the legal right to marry people.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But I said, like you might be getting ahead of yourself, because I've only known the lady for 48 hours. She had this ability, and the rest of the we've been together for 35 years. So, and I mean, her epilepsy never came back. So, that's a nice healing story, and it was something that it was a great gift from Leonard. And so there you go. Yes, and over the years, I've done rebirthing on and off, mostly from people that were sent to me from Rebirth International and from Leonard. And so, I always encourage people to do 10 sessions. And so that's what I did. But, mainly my great passion is creating visual mantras. So I'm a visual artist. My career has been spent in photography, and I've always decided that this was my life purpose, is to create shows. Right now, I'm creating a show that's called Tonal Visions, which uses words and images to try and sensitize people to transformational entertainment. I believe that people are very receptive when they're entertained, and it's a great way to communicate spiritual messages. So that's basically what I'm involved with right now.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Claude, I've been following your tonal visions for a number of years now. Leonard put me in touch with you some number of years ago, and I really appreciate your art, as you know, the photography and the artistry that you turn it into, as a rebirther and as a person that understands and has a relationship with energy and spiritual energy and Kundalini. It's very visible in your work, and it's beautiful to see. I think it can really connect people with the sense, maybe if they've never done breath work or had a sense of themselves as a spiritual energetic being. I think it can really create a visual picture for that. And I wanted to ask you how physical immortality plays in for you in all of this, or if you had experiences with Leonard that kind of opened you to the concept and that's this other sort of reality and world.
Well, I've always been fascinated by the concept of physical immortality. After having studied it for the length of time that I basically known Leonard, because he introduced the idea to me, I came to the conclusion, well, again, I might not have mentioned that to many people, but when we were in Nepal, we met a woman that was considered a saint. I believe Leonard visited her maybe 6 or 7 times. And I spent a day in Nepal that the vibratory nature of that day was so high that when I came back, I wasn't sure if I had spent this day with Leonard in my physical body or in another rarefied body. I wasn't sure if it was a dream or if it had actually happened. But on that day, we went to this village, and we met a sadhu. And this sadhu brought us to an ashram where there was this woman that was considered a saint in Nepal, hadn't eaten any food in 16 years. And Leonard told me he had met her several times and he had never been able to pronounce her name. And so we sat around her in a circle, and I had this flash of what physical immortality actually meant in physical form. And I immediately associated physical immortality with the phenomena of transfiguration as it's described in the Bible. And it's basically like looking at this woman. She, I can't verify if she had eaten, if it was true that she had not eaten any food in 16 years. I couldn't verify that scientifically. But what I got from her is that, like, we were 15 feet away from her because of emotional energy pollution. And she got her food from God. And I asked her at one point, being a photographer, if I could photograph her. And she said, no. It says, if you photograph this form, you're photographing nothing. So I respected that. So I never got a photograph of her. But what I perceived from her is that she's here on this planet to, she does a lot of work during the night. Like, she doesn't sleep much and she doesn't eat. She feeds and has a life here. She has a presence here solely for the purpose of being sort of an anchor of energy. And it's there that I saw the in-between of someone. And I'm sure if I would have met Babaji in physical form, I would have realized the same thing. That, you know, your body is shifting between physical dense and physical etheric. And I saw that in her. And I mean, she was working in the shadows all the time. I mean, she was a recognized saint because even the king of Nepal went to visit her. So she had this notoriety, but lived in truth, simplicity, and love at all times. So I also, when I was hiking in the Himalayas with Leonard, we did, you know, sort of energetic experiences that he sort of compared to a Mount Sinai type of experience. Like, we left for 2 or 3 days on hikes without food, without tents, without sleeping bags, and the discomforts that we felt and the high altitude lack of oxygen that we experienced, we all managed with breath mastery. All right. I can't read. I won't get into it, but you can read about it in Paula's book if you wish. But there again, I felt that my vibratory structure was altered, at least temporarily, because at the outset of our hikes, there was a bird that landed on my body and started, walking all over my body as I was meditating. When we came back from a higher altitude, and that's because of an energy signature that had changed. So for me, physical immortality is exploring what energy we know we're energy. We know that we can exude our creativity to try and enhance and to change the world and push it towards gradually to a higher vibratory level. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're here to learn about ourselves. We're here to evolve, grow with all of the tools that are offered to us, and merge our creativity to introduce these concepts slowly with immortality. And the concept of physical immortality is interesting, but to me, I've abandoned the idea that it's important to immortalize my body. Parallel to breath work, I'm studying intensely lucid dreaming, and I'm also parallel to lucid dreaming, I'm studying near-death experiences. And the common denominator in all of the experiences is that when we leave the physical form, we're going home. This isn't home. At the end of September, Babaji gave me a beautiful gift. Through my research of lucid dreaming, I met him in a lucid dream, and he took me on a trip throughout the universe. And I can only, you can't describe this in words. I mean, Colleen did a beautiful job at describing her experience, which is very similar to what she described. But that again, you find this common denominator where your physical form, like when I was in this experience, I was traveling through the universe, and I didn't know if my physical form was the size of an atom or a galaxy. And it doesn't make any difference because the matrix of creation is the same on an atomic level as it is on the level of a solar system. It's the same structure. But the experience was so fantastic that there again, it was an education in energy and the multidimensionality of how energy manifests everywhere. And of course, the front door to the other side isn't necessarily through dying because you haven't mastered your death urge. The front door to the other side is mastering your personal energy and merging it with creation so that you transfigure the substance. And then the gift that you receive is that you're able to come and go at will. You mentioned, Sarah, in the beginning, that you had beings that materialized in front of you and dematerialized. And these are from beings that can come and go at will. This is physical immortality. It is a form of mastery over the body that you can manifest a body at will, hang out with people like Babaji did for 14 years, and then say, bye-bye, have, another appointment somewhere, So that's the way that I essentially view it.
Beautiful, wonderful. Yeah. And I like that you spoke to that this body isn't home. And I mean, it's a kind of contradiction. It is home. To me, it is home. There is no separation. We have this kind of, in the life and teachings of the Masters of the Far East, it's a 6-volume set of books that Leonard just adored and sold out of his bookstore for many years. They say that humanity is in this mass hypnotism, thinking that they're a spirit, a mind, and a body, and that those three are separate, that we're kind of split off in our identity, and that actually it's a functioning whole. You can't separate your spirit from mind and body. They all function together and have their place. and we're interacting with them in kind of not harmonious ways, perhaps believing that we are this body and this body has a source and is the cause of our pain, and the physical universe is to blame for all of the suffering, or that the mind is, when really the mind is just doing what it does to keep us surviving. We're not our mind, we're not these identities. And then, where is soul? So many people aren't in touch with soul, or the spiritual and the vibrational essence that is hard to put into words, that I feel both Claude, both you and Colleen have vocalized really beautifully here today. The world and the reality of soul, and that we're all of this all together. So it's not about, physical immortality isn't about body worship or worshiping the body and thinking that's the source and all that we are. We know we're eternal beings. We know we are these, this vibration and life energy that Leonard said the energy body can survive anything, including death. we go on. We all have many of us have an experience of Leonard being very much alive and present in his energy body. So that's fun to play with. So I love that you spoke to all of that. That was really beautiful. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we move on to other speakers? And certainly you're welcome to join in later on once we've kind of opened up the roundtable and gotten through all of our guests today.
Well, in ending, I'd really like to thank the rebirthing movement. Everywhere I look nowadays, I listen to a lot of documentaries on Gaia, which is spiritual television, like is the spiritual Netflix. I encourage you to go there. There are so many people working with breath work right now throughout the planet. So it's obvious. I mean, they don't per se mention Leonard, but I think it's very, very obvious. I've gone to international conferences with Leonard when his little girl spirit was very young, right after Nepal. And the amount of information that he brought forth, is outstanding. He created so much interest in breath work since Theta House in the 60s and 70s, that we can see the impact that it's had today. So I just want to thank Leonard on his birthday. I dreamt of him several times since his passing. Some beautiful experiences, some joy, some light. And I just want to tell Rebirth, all the people in the Rebirthing Center, that he's still active in many ways, and he's part of our lives forever, and he's part of the vibratory change of this dimension forever. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Beautiful. Yes. Peace. I'll hand it over to you. You have some guests you want to bring up?
So yes, so one of the things, I was working actively with Leonard for the last 15 years of his life. And one of the things, he just told these incredible stories, about the experiences he's had and people he's met and worked with. And one of my little habits was to go find these people and verify whether he was telling the truth or not. And I have to say, every single time that I've checked, I can't speak for everything he's ever said, but anything I've checked that seemed incredible has been verified. And so I was just scrolling back in my Facebook, and it was January of 2013 when I found our next guest, Don Riggs, who is Flory and Susan Riggs' son and the great-grandson of Sam Riggs. And anybody who's spent enough time around Leonard has heard about Don's great-grandfather and his parents. And so, but now Don and I have communicated on and off over these last 10 years, but it was only this year that I got up the nerve to ask him about his great-grandfather, which is surprising, but we just had some conversation about it, and I'm really delighted to have Don Riggs with us today. So Dawn, can you unmute yourself and say hi?
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
So the audio is a little choppy. And oh, Dawn, turn your camera off and on again, please. Oh, there we go.
Well, sorry, I lost you there for a second.
Now you're
Oh,
on.
so-
You're on. You're
And
good
now
now.
okay, I'm on. So I did want to share a little bit of music to start with. It's time to open up the doors of your perception. It's time to open up windows of your soul. It's time to clear the way, the path to your perfection. It's time to give away things that hold you back. Are you content to be the one who has been waiting? Then you will never be the one you would become. I'm not content to be the one who has been waiting. Your spirit fills my sails and quickens my desire. That's been going through my head all through the speakers. Yeah, I'm not sure if I was physical or spiritual when this happened, but I did see Sam Riggs one time at the front door of my parents' house. And what happened was I'd been thinking seriously about participating in Scientology. And I quizzed my dad about it a little bit. So one day I hear this knock at the door, and I go over and I open the door, and there's this guy a little shorter than me with long white hair. And I pretty much instantly recognized him from my dad's descriptions. And he says to me, I'm not staying long, but Dawn, Scientology is a very bad idea and you should not do it. And that was pretty much the sum of my direct communication with him.
And then what happened?
I dropped Scientology like a hot potato. And I think it was like a couple of years later that our family hooked up with Leonard and rebirthing, and quite transformational. Shifted my gears dramatically, and that was back when all rebirthing was hot water, snorkel, and pretty intense stuff.
So Dawn, tell us a little bit. Most of us on the call know about your parents. Your parents were very involved in the early days of rebirthing, like you said. That was Theta House, I imagine, with the hot tub and the snorkel.
Yeah.
And how old were you at the time?
Oh, let's see. I was born in '52, so that would have been. I was in my early 20s.
Early 20s. And can you tell us for everyone a little bit about your great grandfather? So you saw him for the first time and very briefly when he came to pay you that visit. But when was the last time your father had seen him?
The best I know about that is my father talked about conferring with him on a regular basis. But I wasn't witness to that. So I don't know if it was in the physical or in meditation or what, but, right. But there were frequent times when I asked my father questions and he would say something to the effect of, well, I have to check with grandfather. And then he'd give me an answer the next day.
So your grandfather was, so what Leonard tells the story, and I know we talked about this a little bit, but Leonard, about him materializing all their food.
Yeah, that story that is so great. When he and his wife Furby left the town in Harriman, Tennessee, where my dad grew up, they essentially, I guess, gave their house to one of their sons, and the couple had regularly, like once a week, gone down to the store and bought various dry goods and canned goods. So when this son, this I guess uncle of my father's, moved into this house, they found at least one room, if I remember the story correctly, entirely full of unopened dry goods and canned goods. So apparently Sam had been shopping to maintain an appearance of normalcy, but didn't use any of it.
Wow.
And they also, Leonard had said that he dematerialized in front of your father.
Again, I wasn't witness to that, but yeah, Flory mentioned that, and I will underline something that kind of represents what Sam taught my father. One time, my second wife and I were down in Chula Vista visiting. We flew down there, and I took a shower while I was there, and then we went back to the airport and flew home, and I realized that I had forgotten this silver ring that I wore that had it was like a statue of a panther with a piece of cat's eye in it. And I called up my dad and I said, Flory, I think I left my ring in the shower stall. And he left the phone and came back and said, yeah, it was on this windowsill in the shower stall. And I said, could you send it to me? And he said, yeah, I'll take care of that tonight. I assumed he was going to use USPS. The ring was laying on my nightstand in sunny San Jose, California, the next morning.
Wow.
Boggling.
Yeah, so it was one of those. Yeah, I guess my dad is just about as wild as he says he is.
So yeah, this is really, so how much of this did you see going on growing up?
What I've learned in the years, especially since my father passed, is that while he was alive and he and I were together, he only taught me a very little tiny bit of stuff. And it's become clear to me since then that it was basically because I wasn't ready and I would have gotten myself into deep shit using it. But much of what he talked about is stuff that's come out of my consciousness and becoming to some degree usable for me since then, as I've gotten wiser and less likely to vent anger instantly and stuff like that. So I can see his and Sam's wisdom in, how should I say, postponing my education. Because if you're in touch with any of the other people that were around that time, my friend, most of my friends were members of one of the two outlaw motorcycle gangs in the Southern California area, and my only transportation was a chopped Harley Davidson. And one step in my growing up was when I went to work for Lockheed before it was Lockheed Martin, and I got my security clearance. The guys that did the clearance came back to me and handed me this long list of my friends and said, you know, if you keep riding with these guys, you're going to lose that clearance. So I basically quit riding Harleys at that point, because that was the short, sweet way to center my consciousness on good things instead of mutually assured destruction.
Well, very good. Does anybody else have any questions for Dawn? No, it's a pretty mild subject. I know it's.
Okay, at this point, I do have a happy birthday song for Leonard.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, it's like this. You were born today to be a thorn today in the side of the comfortably numb. It's the day you first saw the light and took life for a ride. It's the day that your parents announced you with such pride. It's the day, it's the day, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Leonard, and thanks for hanging out with us.
That is so
Yay.
wonderful. This is such a high vibration on this call today. It's blowing my mind. So I do want to say to some things we've been talking about is one of the early times that I was with Leonard, when I first was down there and running around, I was in the car with him and we were running around, and it occurred to me to say something to him that was clearly not coming from me, but it was a message that was being delivered. And it was that you cannot transform while holding on to form.
Oh, that's good.
So, it's one of these little odd, I forget what they call those, duality, that, life is both, right? So if you want to transform, you have to let go of form. And I think that speaks to a lot of what we're talking about today. So I wanted to leave you with that. And so what are your thoughts or ideas about physical immortality? Have you given it much thought, Don?
There is such a plethora of spiritual, physical, medical, digital pathways being opened up, all of which lead to some aspect of physical immortality. Somebody did a study a few years ago plotting the curve of human peak lifespan over the last few hundred years, and that curve goes vertical sometime around now. So basically, however each of us and all of us get to physical or immortality, that is definitely a path for some significant chunk of us humans.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So,
and what you said about letting go of form, what's really interesting is that there's a spiritual truth that's hidden in Islam that perfectly dovetails that. I'm going to use a kind of a rude word, the churchianity version of halal and haram, the two angels on your shoulders, is that one of them is good and one of them is bad. But I was in a deep discussion with a friend of mine who's Islamic about that, and we realized by going through their scriptures and our scriptures and a bunch of other stuff, that what's actually going on is Shiva Shakti, is that one of those angels is telling you, go this way, and the other one is telling you that stuff has to be dissolved before you can go that way.
Okay, well, there's something to contemplate. I have my activity for later on today.
I love that.
Yeah. So I really love the song for Leonard. Did that come spontaneously?
I composed most of that song. Well, I didn't compose it, excuse me. I got to clarify. I don't write songs. I'm a voice and a scribe. Every once in a while, what I call God, and you can call whatever is comfortable, stuffs a whole song into my head and says, "Here, sing it and write it down." And I've got a couple of hundred songs at this point. But I put two chunks together: the "You Were Born Today to Be a Thorn Today" and the actual birthday chunk. I put those together for Leonard.
Yeah, I think they're very fitting, especially when some reactions to his ideas can be quite intense.
Yeah, he definitely had the karma, the spirit to blow up people's fixed structures and make them find something better.
Yes. Well, I'm really looking forward to sharing more with you on a lot of different topics. And I hope that, and if you are willing, we can put something together down the road.
And I probably should add before I mute my microphone, okay, the background noise is parrots. I have several parrots. And B, I'm in the process of acquiring a chunk of land here in Central Texas that's basically all wooded with a few structures. It's about 5 acres, and I'm going to be sharing it with one other individual. And my revelation about this property is that it's a place to share rebirthing with that 50% of the human race that is not liberal. And Texas seems like an excellent place to start, because I think we'll all agree that enlightening everybody is better than only enlightening half of us.
It's a big mission, Don.
Yeah,
it's a big mission. It is, and it's a good one. It's a good one. I'm going to be thinking on that, because it might be something I might want to be involved in as I'm able to, but it's challenging. It's a challenging mission.
Well, you're loved and you're blessed, and you're more than welcome to play.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, I'm going to mute my microphone now so that you don't have to listen to the parrots anymore.
Okay, and if anybody has any questions for Don, please, feel free.
And you can also write them in the chat.
Write them in the chat. That would be great.
I just want to share how satisfying it is to finally meet one of the Riggs, because I've known Leonard I knew Leonard for 17, 18 years, and always heard the story of Sam Riggs manifesting the food for the family and the whole thing. And I always wondered, well, where are these people today? So to come full circle is really fun. So thank you, Peace. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, it
really
was
wonderful.
really a treat when I connected with Don. So I think a very good follow-up to Don Riggs is John Illuminati Congo. Another person with an understanding of scripture, or an interest in understanding of scripture. And music, yes.
Hey, thank you, y'all. Thank you for letting me speak, and also for just celebrating Leonard with such sincerity and great songs and stories. I always I love these days. It's my little way of still connecting with the community the least I can, you know what I'm saying? Leonard, thank you. I guess I'll do a little of a song since Leonard loved this one here. I'm alive now, of this I'm certain, as long as I keep strengthening my life circuits and removing unconscious death urges. I will go on living eternally healthy and perfect. Let's build. I'm thrilled and filled with bliss. I'm feeling this miracle that we exist. This thing called life ain't gotta be complex. Life ain't a bitch. She my bright goddess. I ain't focused on the afterlife and who got next. The death urge crept in when you got vexed and became unconscious when emotions suppress, repress, building up in the stress. Let's let it go, let it flow, connect the breath. Inner with the outer till spirit matter mesh. The body is a beauty, not a worthless bag of flesh. Master the mind, let divine manifest. Vibrate mind state at a higher wavelength. Ascending through the stargate as I gave thanks. Whatever thinker thinks, prover makes take shape. To die is a grave mistake. I'm alive now. Of this, I'm certain. As long as I keep strengthening my life circuits and removing unconscious death urges, I will go on living eternally healthy and perfect. One more verse. All the cells of my body bathe in perfection of my divine being without any exception. Energy flows where attention is directed. I'm keeping my inhale and exhale connected. All that was dead has now resurrected, transformed, transfigured, and ascended. Spirit matter blended. Life is one splendid display of God's love and grace that's never ending. Mastering the physical body is recommending to remain in relation and build lasting friendships. You're not a convict living out a death sentence. You're a divine being. Relax into its presence. Question: are you an immortal or a deathist? Matter is spirit, but it's vibrating the densest. I no longer need pains to get attention. My physical body is my most valuable possession.
Amen.
Yes, and
you.
that's actually a song, and I played it in a couple of years ago, but then they didn't let me upload it to YouTube, so you have to sing it in person.
That's wonderful.
This
because
was
now we
wonderful to
have it.
receive today, though. Thank you.
Yeah,
The live
Leonard.
performance.
As you could tell, that's all inspired by the Rebirthing Breathwork community and our fellowship together. So much of the lyrics come from that, and it's interesting because as I perform that song, I don't perform it every show, but I perform it a lot of my shows, and that one makes me like new fans, and people come up to me talking about, yo, my life, that song changed my life. It changed my whole way of approaching life and thinking about things. And so that's how Leonard's work is reverberating throughout the world. Recently, I was hired by Pretty Lights. They're a huge like group that does like hip hop, EDM, drum and bass, and a bunch of lights type of music. People, you know, they like to do a lot of substances at these parties, but Pretty Lights hired me to be their personal breath coach and share breath work also with their audience, in because you know how Leonard talked about how to get high in 30 seconds just with the 20 connected breaths. So we've been doing that, and people are having, like, when I do it, I'm not getting people full blast on breathwork sessions in the crowd. You know, Leonard taught me too well on that, but little intervals of this technique here, 20 seconds of this technique here, a minute of this technique here, so people can get a little juice of it and find ways to use it in their own environment. And it's spreading. And I'll tell you this, I always say Leonard's name. This is very important, because like homie was saying on Guy MTV, they don't mention Leonard. Wim Hof don't mention Leonard. None of these people who learned or were inspired or motivated, got something from what Leonard did, they don't really mention him. And I'm not gonna let that be me. I'm gonna continue to put people on blast too when they leave his name out and be like, hey, that sounds like you got a little of that from Raja Makan Singh right there, you know, so you're gonna have to pay some dues, pay some credit. And you know, so I have a little defense for my guy there. But I love Leonard. I'm so happy we're doing this. I am in my body. I embrace physical immortality. I see the body, like the word body is so close to Bodhi. The word physical is so close to phi and cycles. Actually, like you were saying, Sarah, the physical world is really the spirit world. It's really the mental world. They're all one world. That, you know, that saying, wherever you go, there you are. You know, you can't get away from yourself. So I think that personally, I've come to see that ascension is to be completely present here, to be completely present and completely human here, to be completely a presence of love here and now. Because wherever you go, it's still going to be here and now. So that's what I've learned. Now I don't know what that entails, because my body could transfigure, turn into rainbow body, turn into diamond body, turn into golden body, disappear, reappear, do all the, I don't know. I hear these stories. There's so many styles. I listen to the siddhas. I read what the siddhas do, and like, where's this book? Here's one. The Masters of Mahamudra. They have 84 different siddhas in here, and they had 84 different ways that they attain transfiguration. 84 different
siddhas as meaning powers and or mastery of a certain power.
Yes, siddhis is the power, and yes, siddhas, yes, indeed, the accomplished ones, or the ones who accomplished those perfections. And so those cats found 84 different ways to do it according to each of their individuality. And I think that's, I love that message, because I think there's individual styles to how we manifest our physical immortality or our ascension, our transfiguration, but whatever we do, it's going to be here, and it's going to be now forever.
Beautiful.
That's all. That's all.
That's all.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, y'all.
So much. And speaking of physical, because you know, there is the mystical and the part that you know, that amazing psycho-spiritual components are very compelling. But I do want to put in a word, as we're doing so much talk about breathwork today, that about freeing the restrictions on our breathing mechanism, on our physical breathing mechanism, and allowing the chi to flow. And as we release these areas of constriction, the chi, the energy, can flow into our physical body and reach our cells more and more. So breathwork, yes, we have all of these amazing experiences that go along with it, but one of the most miraculous is the capacity to, as we feel safe enough, and the repressed material, and we breathe enough energy into those restrictive conditioning on our breathing mechanism, we can break that pattern and have more freedom and more oxygen and chi, life energy, flowing through our system and rejuvenating or nourishing our tissue, our actual physical cells, while we're here in this physical body. So a word for that aspect of the breath work, liberating the breathing mechanism.
You know, peace, relating to the left and the right, angels, that made me think of the left and the right nostrils, because he referred to Shiva and Shakti, and those can be considered that, like, the left nostril is the more gentle side, or the cooler side, and the right nostril is the fiery side, and known as the solar side, the left side known as the lunar side. And it made me think about how, like, those angels, what if they are sort of like connected to our breath, and you know how throughout the day one of our nostrils might be more dominant than the other, and in those different sides. So that's the consideration I was having about the left and the right angels on the shoulders.
Right. And also the right and left hemispheres. If anybody saw that video that Jane Bodie Taylor, I think, who did when she had that stroke and the hemorrhage in one side of her brain, and it was her right side of her brain. And so she was living in the perspective, the expanded perspective, but, you know, the kind of the more linear task. She wasn't able to access that for a while. It was such a fascinating video. It's on YouTube. It was a TED Talk. I really hope people remember that and watch that. But she talks about the functions of the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And speaking about the right and left hemisphere, another piece of information that I want to reiterate for people is the corpus callosum, the membrane between the network between the hemispheres. That's meant to facilitate that communication. But when we are stressed, that becomes a block. So we tend to get stuck in one side or the other, one hemisphere, more in one hemisphere or the other. So you'll either go around in circles with details, or you'll be spaced out, you know. And so it's really important to come back to presence. You know, so we have our conditioned response, our activated nervous system, but to come back to presence, you know, so before we either make an action or come back to presence, that stillness, that moment pause where we can get out of the way and let our natural reflexes have at us rather than think it. So I thank you for bringing that up again. And I'm happy that I got a chance to share those little tidbits that mean so much. So thank you.
Thank you. Heike, you want to say a few things? I know that you're leaving us early. It's been a long day for you.
Well, I have another meeting that I'm going to, so the computer will stay here and keep recording, and I might hook up while I'm driving.
Okay.
But if I could introduce Zoe to you.
Okay. And then Sarah's going to take over as host. Yes,
she already is.
Yes.
Okay.
And so Zoe,
if you're with us, you can take your microphone off.
Yes, so she is a rebirthing breath worker, and Leonard always talked about the death urge and how to make physical immortality possible, we do need to do some healing, and Colleen was talking about that too, that to make it practical and realistic, we have to increase the joy in our life. And so I would like to invite Zoe to possibly speak a little bit about her experience with working with people on healing the death urge, because the physical immortality has many aspects, like we are hearing all these powerful different aspects of physical immortality, and the nitty-gritty, or the descension, like Colleen called it, is basically working with our shadow. So maybe Zoe, you like to share a little bit more about yourself, and then I hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you for your introduction. First, I will share something about myself. I'm Zoe. I'm a rebirther from the Netherlands, and I haven't been a rebirther for a long time, only since I think 6 months, but I'm really enjoying giving sessions. And last year I had my first experience with rebirthing, and I immediately knew I want to do this. And also I noticed that today, exactly 1 year ago on Leonard's birthday, I signed up for the 3 weeks training. So on his birthday, I decided to become a rebirther. So that, yeah.
That's
a
birthday
special
present
today. Yeah, it is. And I've been working a lot with the death urge the last month, and it sounds a bit strange because it can be a heavy topic, but it's one of my favorite topics to work with because the effect is huge on my clients when we work with it. And how I see it is that the death urge is everything that is against life, our limiting beliefs, behaviors, patterns, thoughts, and we get something from our family, our culture, environment, but also when we go through things in life, such as trauma or when we are hurting. And at every time when these things happen, we kind of lose a little part of ourselves because that part is like, whoa, this life is heavy, unsafe. It's full of pain, sadness. I don't know if it's safe to be in this life. When that builds up, we create a subconscious death urge, and for some people, even conscious death urge, like depression, anxiety, suicide. And what I notice with my clients is that they often are ashamed of it or are afraid of it. So they are trying to push it away, fighting against it, like, no, that's not a good thing to talk about. And then I'm like, okay, please talk about it. Share your thoughts, your beliefs. Feel it in your body, what it does with you, what it does with your energy, with your breath, and stay at that place. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to change it. Just be with it. Because it's a part of them that is hurting, that has been neglected for sometimes years. And I think what people want that are in pain, they want love. They want to be seen. So I always ask them, can you give love to that part? Can you see it? Can you embrace it? And just say to that part, I care about your suffering. And when they do that, they become softer, less hard on themselves. And that creates space to work on their life urge. To give space to what they want to believe about themselves. To actually dream like a little child again, to be amazed by life and other possibilities, create a life vision. And when we combine these two things, to give love to our death urge, to parts that are hurting, and give energy and space to our life urge and what we really want, I think that's a really important remedy against the life urge. And you can see that something is shifting in the energy when we work on that. And that's beautiful to see.
Yes, I'm very impressed also with your work, and we have trained so many young people, and I shared that in the German meeting that there is so much high consciousness now in the world, and the tool of rebirthing breath work is just giving us options to really participate in a healthy way and in a powerful healing way in the life of other people. So thank you for all that you do, for all the rebirthers, for all contribution. And Leonard always used to say we are like the vacuum cleaners of the world, like we are healing the death urge in the work that we do. Anything else, Zoe?
No.
Well, just thank you very much. And
yes, and questions are always welcome, so feel free to ask them. But no, I don't have anything else to share.
Great. I love seeing you shining your light.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for training me in this. Yeah.
It was
That's
one
such
of
an
my
honor.
my greatest pleasure, seeing the transformation and everything and the healing that happened. So thank you. I think we're going next with Kira.
And she's got her video off. Kira, if you're with us.
She's coming.
There you come. We didn't officially announce you as speak. Would you like to share anything? Not meaning to put you on the spot, but you're muted, dear. If you want to, if you have anything you want to share about physical immortality, I know you've come in previous years. You've shared your story about meeting who you believe to have been Bartraji at Bartraji's ashram while you were traveling with Leonard. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, what I'll talk about is my health issue. And, you know, that was such a big thing for me with looking at mortality, because I could have literally chosen to leave the planet. And so I had it's still there, but I've dealt with all the fear of death of this tumor in me. And it was literally a question that was put to me when I was working with grandmother ayahuasca. Is like, do you want to live or do you want to leave? And I was ready to say, yeah, get me out of here. But no. There was this like absolute resounding yes, you've still got work to do in this physical plane. And so that's where I really looked at how my death urge had grown rapidly during the COVID regime. And, you know, not only did it restrict my breath, and I really found that, I was observing how my in-breath was really weak. I was really good at letting go on the exhale, but my in-breath was so difficult. And so I spoke a bit about this morning. I went to see Heike last Christmas, and I redid 10 sessions. And oh my goodness, Leonard used to say, you know, every decade, make sure you go to a really good rebirther and have 10 sessions. And it is so true, because, boy, Heike put me to work, I tell you. Because she's like, come on, breathe in, get out, come on, what is that you're doing? And I'm like, and I ended up, I had to do a lot of mouth breathing, because we were going to some really early experiences, and it was very profound. And that's where you know, having someone who really pushes you got that prana going again, because you can get complacent. And especially after those few years of what we all went through, even though I still traveled.
I think you traveled more than I'd known you to in the past. During the COVID years.
Well, it was actually Babaji that said to me about coming into the US without having the chit. And he just said, you can just walk in. And I did.
Mind-blowing.
It was brilliant. Yeah. Anyway, so just recently at the start of Navaratri, a group of us got together and said, we're going to breathe every day to the Arti. And we did. And we're still going, because every day it's been fantastic, just getting that inspiration. And it is literally spiritual purification with air. You know, you're not going into a big process. You're just getting energized, getting that inspiration. And I really have seen such a difference. And it's been wonderful. And I'm going to keep it up for as long as I can. And I did put it out on the Rebirth International community group on Facebook. If you want to join, it's I think it's 1 p.m. Eastern.
Here, you know that Leonard did breathe to the Arti. He listened, and so for people who don't know, Arti is the song. It's a song of light. It's a song of worship, devotional love to God. And in this case, it was for Harikan Babaji. Is the Arti that you're referring to here, and he played that on a cassette tape player, in his bath every morning and would breathe to that every morning. That was his daily practice for many years, at least when I met him. I don't know if that changed over the years, but I imagine probably didn't. So it's even just listening to it is a rebirth.
He'd breathe in the bathtub
Yes.
every day. Yeah. And it was quite fun when you were traveling with him and, you know, you were in the bathtub at the same time and he was in the next room and all the noises.
Yes.
And then he just starts singing as well. It was great.
Yes. Or Om Namah Shivaya word. Just, yes. It was very energizing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I mean, it's rediscovering for me those early days of rebirthing, going, oh my gosh, I forgot that it was like this.
Rediscovering your own early days of rebirthing,
Yeah.
like coming back to it new and fresh. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one place that I didn't get to in India with Leonard, when we were in Bhopal, he mentioned that 3 hours away in some rocks were some immortal Christians living in this great big rock formation. And I always wanted to find where it was and have it, because he went there once and he didn't find them. So if anybody knows, please let us know. Anyone knows where this rock formation is? It's 3 hours drive from Bhopal. Yeah. So
I know that he went there, but I would have to check out, well, with our Indian friends, maybe I can find something out. Maybe Chitra knows, or Rajendra, or maybe Jayashree. So we have to, we should ask around about it.
Yeah.
I think that was Leonard's technique. Go there, physically go there and ask around and see what happens. I mean, that's what the authors of, I was mentioning earlier, the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East, they were a team of scientists that went to India to study this and to find immortal masters. And boy, did they ever. They ended up going on a whole trek through the mountains with them. And I don't know how long it was before they realized after a while that the people they were traveling with were the immortals. They were manifesting all of the food that they needed on their journey. So it's just, Leonard would often say, you could be standing face to face and you wouldn't know this person as an immortal or as an ascended master. They'll reveal that if they want you to. And then it's also, you may not scientifically be able to prove it, but Claude, I think you were mentioning earlier that there is a quality, a vibrational quality and a transcendent energy that can't be described or quantified. And so when you know, there's just no question. What does it feel like to be in the presence of someone hundreds of years old, or someone who doesn't eat and lives on prana and lives in that state? Yes, Claude, go ahead, please.
They carry you with them when you're around their energy, and the state that you feel in is totally different in your body. There's a lightness to everything around you. And this is why I said that when we met this lady in Nepal, that particular day was so magical and vibrationally high that I questioned the reality at one point. But thank God I had two photographs. I had one photograph of the sadhu that brought us there, and one photograph just before we entered the ashram of the lady. I don't have a photograph of the lady, but the photographs proved to me that this was a physical experience.
That's
so
beautiful.
Maybe we like to know where that place is so that we possibly could go. Because I in the beginning I went to India, and there was this Bhatraji festival, and I have to close the door 1 second. And the Bhatraji festival, there were thousands of people, and it was a festival of and supposedly there were immortals coming. So I'm sitting there and trying to figure out who is immortal and who is not. I don't think that I actually met somebody at that point, but it is yeah, it takes commitment to look for these beings. They're not just popping up because we have one time a thought we would like to meet an immortal. We have to do the practices, and we have to bring ourselves into that that vibration, that we can also hold that presence in our and stay present with them.
Well, that's an interesting point, Heike, because when I went to Virginia, don't quite remember what year. I didn't meet Leonard, but you know, because he wasn't available. But in the early morning, he slipped a paper under my under the door of my room, and I read it, and it described a similar meeting of immortals that happened in India, but it was basically a competition to see who had more powers. And he said that the winner of this competition, or what have you, was a householder. So he had a home, he had a meditation room in which people couldn't go into because the energy was too strong. But he apparently had children and all that, and he gave that to me to prove to me that you can be an ascended masters and still entertain a presence on this planet and appear to be as ordinary as the guy next door, you know. So that was an interesting read, you know, and it goes and joins what you just outlined. Yeah,
right. And Babaji, to some people, Babaji was just an ordinary guy, and they didn't see anything specific about him. And some people had the deepest experience and were open to receiving what he had to give.
Yes, yes. And so were a lot of devotees around him. I met Shastriji, and Shastriji was a householder also. He had a family and all that, and he was one of his closest devotees. So yes, the integration of spirituality into this realm and this vibrational realm is definitely possible, and it goes and joins in the saying that we're not material beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a mundane and material experience, and from that standpoint, the transformation begins around us.
Right. We have some other people. Jane. Jane is a close friend also since, I don't know, 20 years. We went to Brazil.
Time. Yeah.
How long is it? And please go ahead, whatever you would like to share.
It's at least 18 years. I can't remember. Yeah. Yeah. And I met Leonard on a training one of his 9-day workshops. But I met him in the street before. And so I'd gone down to the beach in Dorset. And when I was walking back, there was this guy walking, and I just thought, I know him, you know. And he did the same thing. He looked at me and he was, and of course that was Leonard. Yeah. So and then we did that thing there, and he's just such an amazing prayer. He still is, because he still turns up when I think about him. That energy, I can feel that energy, and it's his. Who was it? Somebody said earlier on, Colleen, and I forget. And she said very early on, she said that she felt him as a very mischievous energy, and he was very mischievous, and just likes to wind people up. And one of you were at one of the funniest things I've ever seen, actually, for me, and this is my interpretation that you were there, was Leonard had gone to and I'd gone with you and him to Crefeld to give a talk, and the talk was advertised about money. So the talk was advertised as the prosperity. It wasn't the prosperity consciousness consultation, but it was a talk from Leonard about money. And so all these nice, respectable middle-class Germans were all sitting around in a big circle waiting for Leonard to tell them about money. And Leonard talked only about physical immortality, and they were getting madder and madder and madder. And I was just thinking, he's doing this deliberately. And they did. And he talked for about something like 40 minutes, and he didn't mention money once. And then, or was it? It might have been the other way around. Anyway, whichever way around it was, he wasn't talking about what the talk was. And then some woman sort of put, excuse me, you know, this was you. This talk said you were going to talk about money or whatever it was. Yeah. And I don't know how I was just laughing. I had that. That was when it was absolutely hilarious. And I just spent the whole time giggling quietly. The Germans just thought I was nuts anyway, so it didn't matter. He was an absolute superstar. Yeah. And that's also, that same time was where I met Simon, who is also here sitting by his fire. Hi, Simon. And yeah, rebirthing. I got the last few years with, it wasn't the COVID directly, but there've been a lot of very strong sort of death urge experiences in my life. And I got out of the, I'd stopped doing it for some reason slightly before this happened. It's interesting, this, isn't it? Because you stop and then all this stuff flies at you and people start topping themselves right, left and centre. And you go, what is going on here? And then I've been living in a very small village, rural village, in which I haven't been feeling very welcome, and then I'm sort of feeling very isolated, and then I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you've just cut yourself off from your community. And this was something else Leonard used to talk about a lot, was that you need to keep in touch with your spiritual community, and I haven't been doing that. And it's really nice to come to this, because it's just gone, yeah, right, and this is where I should be, not doing all these other things. Yeah. But I can still certainly feel that energy of Leonard just by thinking about him. Yeah, he turns up. So he's still there. He's still definitely hurtling around the universe. Yes, keeping us in order.
Beautiful, thank you. So who would like to share something? Okay, Helen.
Hello, everybody. I'm in Quebec City now, and I'm so grateful to have met Leonard in the early days when he came to Quebec. I never met Claude, because I think it's because in those days I was in Montreal, but I moved back to Quebec, and I was sort of organizing sessions, rebirthing sessions in Quebec City. And I took a weekend with Leonard. That was later, but at the beginning, I took a day of the relationship with money. And also I bought all his cassettes, and I listened to all the subjects on his cassettes. And what Claude said, mastering your personal energy, you can come and go as you please. That was like, I really vibrated with this, because that's how I wanted to bring my body and to transmute it right from the beginning, because I thought that was big freedom on planet Earth to be able to come and go. And people would say, well, it's because you're afraid of death. And I said, no, yes, I used to be afraid of death, but this was so important to me that my friends called me 1008, because I would explain to them that was the vibration between matter and energy. And so they started calling me 1108. And my death urge was really big. Big things happened, like a motorcycle accident that it's not my fault, but I went up in the air. That I was in California on my motorcycle, and I heard God say, Helena, stop fooling with your life. And then I was doing martial arts, so my body went down. And I rolled. I didn't remember. I knew how to fall down, because we learned that in martial arts, and no car hit me, and it was a miracle. And this is when I took really rebirthing seriously, in the sense that I believed that my path was was already traced for me. As a rebirther, and as being rebirthed. And right now, after that, I decided, I opened in 1976 a women's self-help center. And for me the women's bodies are like the doctors and everybody, the system, it's like they own women's bodies. And that issue was very dear to me, that we get our autonomy and our health, and we would take it into our hands. So through rebirthing and through the years, I've linked those two issues together. And so each time I have a health issue, I use the rebirthing breathing to get out of it. And the last time, my arteries, femoral arteries, 8 years ago, were 80% blocked, and I couldn't walk anymore. And so that brought me in the present moment as never before. And I started healing myself, and it took 7 months before I completely healed. And maybe I would like to write about that, the different health issues, and bringing back to a larger for everybody else, and give tools on that.
Well, we can also include you maybe in the study that my friend is doing, this young rebirther that I was sharing about before, and experiences of physical healing and also personal transformation. So
yes,
that
I would
sounds
love
like
that.
a very powerful experience.
Yes.
So
I would,
you
yes,
are
I
on
would like,
Facebook.
yes.
I just needed to know how we all connecting, because are you all in the Facebook, the Rebirthing Breathwork community group, right?
No, but I will. I know I'm not.
Okay, well then we will send it out in the newsletter. Sarah can send it out in the newsletter, and then that's probably how we all connected, right?
Oh, well, me, I get emails from you. That's
Right.
why I'm up
Right.
to date. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, Sarah,
Yeah.
Sarah's,
Yes.
yeah. Great.
Perfect.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I don't know that I have anything else to add right now. I'm just kind of beaming and enjoying. I feel like I'm sitting back like a cat in total satisfaction, just enjoying the community and hearing from longtime rebirthers, new rebirthers, on my favorite topic, physical immortality and healing the unconscious death urge. I taught I worked at what Leonard was calling the West Coast Convention for many years at the original Campbell Hot Springs, which is now Sierra Hot Springs. We had our annual convention there, and that's really was kind of my spiritual home, where I grew into myself as a rebirther and found that I had a real passion for helping people with their unconscious death urge and speaking about physical immortality. That's how the physical immortality consciousness consultation, how I wrote all of that material out of those years of experience there. And it's just marvelous to have this whole community together of breath workers, of people that knew Leonard, of people that are students of Leonard's students, or maybe know him in spirit, and to gather around on this topic is so near and dear to my heart. I'm just filled with a lot of gratitude and joy with this community and connecting with all of you, every one of you. It's wonderful. So I'm very grateful. I think that's really all I can share right now. And yes, I manage the newsletter for RIBA. I did it for years for Leonard, and I continue in my love and service to Leonard and the community. So I love hearing from people. Please respond to the newsletter if you have questions for us or ideas and want to gather and work on projects. We have more projects than we can implement and more ideas. We're always looking for, more cooks in the kitchen. Honestly, we have a lot of projects we want to work on and things to do. So if you would like to be a part of the community, please reach out. We are here. And there's a lot of work to do. I always leave each one of these events, I leave feeling like we need to organize a trip. We need to go somewhere. We need to have some adventures and be meeting, with the intention of meeting immortals. And certainly you can do that from your living room, from your home. They will come to you. That has been my experience. The more I connect with that in my heart, in my being, in my mind, and the more that I do the practices that Leonard taught us of purification, really it is purification. I used to have a hard time with that word because I would always tell him, Leonard, my soul is already pure. It doesn't need to be purified. And that's absolutely true for me. I really believe that for everyone also. But there is a lot of mental and emotional chatter and garbage and mud and muck that needs clearing. And my understanding is that if we are living in that, vibration, we will not be able to see and interact with higher vibrational states and higher beings and the masters, the ascended masters, the immortals. So the more we can clear within ourselves and come clean into our own natural divinity, into our own being, and that the more we can raise our vibration, the more that vibration can come to us. And it absolutely has been my experience through doing breath work, through spending time with the fire, through bathing twice daily, through having community. This is what we're doing today. This is a purification today of having this spiritual community. We're raising each other's vibration. We are coming together and exponentially raising each other's vibration, raising our thoughts and our feelings through all of the practices, and eating right, through nutrition and exercise, and taking care of my physical body through the earth elements. By doing all of that, I'm opening myself, and I have received visitations and interactions and teachings from ascended beings. I used to be terrified to say that publicly, but now it doesn't matter. It's just, that's my truth, and that's what I'm living. And that's what I aim to continue living. And I want to bring as many people along for the ride as want that for themselves as well. So I guess that was a lot to say, actually, that, if we can come together in a group, I'm just setting that intention, that we can gather together and have adventures and explorations. Also, that we can do it independently, individually, from our own homes and our own daily lives. And to keep looking and assessing what in our life is bringing us more joy, more aliveness, and what isn't, and how can we, you know, delicately and skillfully with wisdom and love manage those things to bring about more aliveness in our lives, in ourselves, and in the people around us.
And
So-
we do have, as humanity, we have a big job, because there's so much upset and hurt and pain and suffering, and we are all one in that way. But what we can do is we can send love and help as many people that we can with reversing breathwork or practices that help people to heal the pain of many lifetimes, and so much injustice that is happening, and pain, and so reversing breathwork is a great tool, and there's a lot to do.
Yes, thank you, Heike.
So
Dr.
peace, Kira, and then peace. Anybody else would like to share something, because we are going, Jane has to go, so wonderful. And so, yes, please do respond to the newsletter. What is that, Kira?
So, Voyage to Avalon. Robert Kuhn. Did anybody read his books?
No, but I heard about him. So yeah,
I think he was inspired by Leonard.
He met Leonard.
Yeah.
He's from Brazil.
So I'm reacquainting myself with this because I'm in Glastonbury at the moment, and an Immortalist Guide to the Magic of Glastonbury. So
well, that's a meeting point.
Yeah. So if anybody
keep us updated,
come and see me. Come to Glastonbury. Simon, you're not too far away.
You know, how about an online story time?
Yeah.
I think we need a story time.
Immortalist Book Club.
I want to be read too.
Right. Peace, your last words, or anybody else?
Someone to read to me.
well, we did that for Halloween one year. We read from this book here, Raised from the Dead.
Yes.
This was a fantastic Halloween party we had. This was one of Leonard's favorite books. I think he called it Physical Immortality Catholic Style, which has some dark twists to it, and real
physical immortality isn't challenging enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think one of the saints in this book had been beheaded and managed to survive that as well. I mean, there's just fantastic, beautiful stories, and there's so much. There is so much in every culture. There's books, there's writings, there's legends, there's, you know, saints locally that you may not know of because they're not on the internet and no one's promoting them on social media. Get off your phones, right? And get out into communities and start talking. And yeah, lots in India. I think Leonard was really fond of Indian culture and the rich spiritual history they have. But now I'm interrupting you, Peace. I want you to have, we are going over time. So
I'm enjoying this. I'm feeling quiet today because I have all this disruption with my kitchen being torn apart and rebuilt. So I'm a little bit, you know, in shock.
Okay.
But I love the idea of
letting go,
Kira,
letting go.
of Kira running around India and looking for those shelters and those immortals. And I think that would be a fun trip. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about that and more stories. Let's share more stories and do this more often, maybe in a little informal way.
If anybody has something to share, put the hand up in the chat. Then otherwise we will finish our meeting. Annie just says hi. Wow.
Oh,
Annie Boyd?
Yeah,
From
she's
Australia.
just popping up somewhere, but I think she sent me a message on Facebook or something.
is there any news of Pauline?
No, I don't know. Okay, so
we're looking for you.
Annie, yes. Anybody else? I don't see a hand up right now, and we will finish
Simon,
up.
you don't want to say hello? Simon? Okay.
Yeah, he puts his hand up. Yeah, right.
I was muted, but hello.
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 It's been a lovely meeting. It's been a lovely gathering. Lovely gathering. I've been
Thank you
sat
for
with my
being
fire,
here.
so
Yeah, I can
it's been a
see the
lovely gathering.
shine.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So thank you everybody for participating. And
Heike, thank you for being our master of ceremonies and going all day so that we can reach everyone in whatever time zone they're in.
10 hours
thank
on
you.
the internet. Now I will hit the
Fun.
bathtub and my
Yes.
fireplace. So
Heike Hanuman.
it was a great joy and pleasure all day long to connect with people from all around the world, rebirthers and friends of Leonard's, and new people that are coming in and continuing the work. And I thank everybody who's been here with us today. And
Yep.
we are actually possibly planning something for the World Breathing Day, and that is in April. And so that could be our next meeting. And then we have every year the 5th of September and the 15th of November also to unite. So then we would have 3 meetings a year, and any other projects that we can come up with to connect with all of you and keep the spirit of Leonard's mischievous or wonderful energy alive and benefit from it. So Leonard, I think Claude said it last time, bon voyage. You said that, I think, on the video. So bon voyage, Leonard, wherever you are, and happy birthday for this last body. And
Thank you so much.
thank you, Helena, and thank you everybody, and John and everybody, and see you the next meeting. Om Namah Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya.
And Sarah will finish the meeting now. And maybe Sarah,
Oh, yes.
could you do a little prayer for us? I was just thinking about that.
Oh, you want a little affirmative?
Yes, please.
Affirmative mind treatment.
Prayer.
Yes.
Any specific?
The planet.
Maybe
World
for the
peace,
heat. Yeah, the
uplifting.
world peace.
Sure. So I'll just I'll guide us in a little affirmative prayer. It's also known as affirmative mind treatment. It's something that I learned as a practitioner in the United Centers for Spiritual Living. It's a branch that came out of Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind study. And so just listen with an open heart and mind. It's kind of like eavesdropping on a little conversation, and enjoy. So if you would join with me in just taking a nice deep breath and feeling yourself really rooted in your body, grounded here on earth. And I'll begin. So I recognize that there is one infinite divine presence, one indwelling presence. It is the presence of love, of light, of all knowledge, total mastery, and perfect bliss, of perfect consciousness and perfect existence. It is whole and complete. There is nowhere that it is not or lacking. And it exists throughout all of time and space, and shall always exist throughout all of time and space. It is the very platform from which life springs. It is the core essence of who and what we are. It is our divine nature. And so I recognize that there is no separation between us and this God, Spirit, infinite being, divine mother, divine father, whatever we call it. That it is indeed right here within the very breath and cells of our minds and bodies and beings. Fully omnipotent, everywhere powerful. And so I speak this word knowing that that presence is right here within me and within everyone present, listening now or to the recording. And I speak a word on behalf of humanity, on behalf of all of our hearts, on behalf of all of our suffering and pain, on behalf of all of the traumas in the human history that this earth has ever seen. I speak a word that this divine presence is here fully and completely, and that this pain and suffering is transmuted in this moment now into whole and perfect divine harmony, manifesting here on earth through us now as the divine true beings that we are, that is what is calling forth and coming forth now into our world. The divine plan, the perfection of heaven on earth, of peace, of love, of harmony, of belonging, of no harm, of life supporting and life sustaining ideas and practices and beings, that is here now as our manifested reality here on earth in every divinely harmonious way possible, that it can come forth through humanity now and through divine inspiration. I speak a word knowing of personal and individual healing for every person on this planet today and every person yet to come. Throughout all of time and space, that there is indeed a deep cleansing of the mass discord, of the misuse of our own divine creative power, that is healed, forgiven, released, and forgotten. And that now we are living harmoniously in our divine presence and life essence of love. And so for this demonstration today, and in whatever shape or form it takes in the divine plan, I give deep thanks, and I am truly moved to gratitude. And I know that this prayer was answered before the words were even said, that divine action has already taken place. And so for all of this and so much more, I am in a state of gratitude, and I release my word into the law of mind, knowing that it is a law just as real and true as gravity. And so I let go and I step out of the way. And so it is. Thank you. Much love to all of you. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you,
Om
Claude.
Namah
Thank you,
Shivaya.
John.
Thank you, everybody. Om Namah
Have a beautiful
Shivaya.
day
And yes, have a beautiful
or
rest of
night.
the day.
Stay in touch with us. We're at rebirthingassociation.com. You can connect with us there on our newsletter. Sign up for our newsletter. We love to be in touch with you. Thank you.
Jai Leonard. Acharya
Jai
Makan
Leonard.
Singh Raja Ki Jai.